Let's talk about the Philadelphia Eagles and their offseason. Because, I mean, look, they made some moves, whether you agree with the moves that they made or not. They're definitely swinging for the fences here, which is something that I can respect. Um, this offseason so far, they got Saquon Barkley, they got Bryce Huff from the Jets, and then yesterday they got CJ Gardner-Johnson from the Detroit Lions. So how are you feeling about the Philadelphia Eagles going into this upcoming season?
I just released a video on my Instagram, a teaser to my whole show that I do, the Ben Garcia Show on YouTube solo. That's, of course, until this takes off, basically. But the Philadelphia Eagles are crazy. I get it, guys. They have cap space. They can spend it on whatever they want. And Saquon Barkley's a really cool toy. Saquon Barkley's had 1,000-yard rushing season in the past 4 seasons. And if you want to go back and say, well, 5 seasons ago he had a 1,000-yard season, he had 1,003 yards. It wasn't exactly Derrick Henry 2,000-yard season. When you have a quarterback that's on a lesser deal, I totally get getting a running back, helping elevate him. When you have Josh Sweat, Hassan Reddick, both on the trading block, that is wildly reported, your safeties, and I get then got Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who has his own issues that he had with the Lions last year. But when you have multiple issues in the secondary, you just wasted a 3rd and a 6th round pick or whatever it was for Kevin Byard. Just flush that down the toilet. James Bradbury can't cover anyone. So you have a real secondary issue. And oh yeah, Darius Slay's on the wrong side of 30. And I don't know if you know this, cornerbacks and running backs age very similarly in this sport. The offensive line, Jason Kelsey's gone. My point is they had holes everywhere. And instead, after having a 1,000-yard rusher in DeAndre Swift, who is not my favorite running back to say the least, I never once watched the Eagles this year and said, you know what they're missing? You know what would get them out of this slump? A high leverage, top flight running back. That would save this team against the Buccaneers. And gosh darn it, they went and got it. Like, I never thought that. And so they go and get Saquon Barkley, and I'm like, okay, cool, I guess that's cool. Like, it's weird. It's a shiny toy. The Chauncey Gardner-Johnson thing, cool. He wasn't great last year with the Lions. He was good with the Saints. He was good with the Eagles. Had a down year last year with the Lions, whose secondary was awful everywhere. But sure. And yes, Chauncey, you do owe the people of Philadelphia an apology after basically cursing them out on your way out.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I want to go on a little bit of a rant here. I think
have fun.
I think Howie Roseman is the most overrated general manager in football. I mean, I really do. The reason why they had a ton of money to spend is because they're not paying all pro level players market setting money. That's why they have money to spend. Okay. This is a guy that ever since he's taken over as the general manager since Chip Kelly, he's not good at drafting. He's not. His misses are bad, man. They're really bad. I mean, they drafted Jordan Davis 2 years ago over Kyle Hamilton. They drafted Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson. This is the same guy that after Carson Wentz got injured, he decided to pay him. And then not only that, he spent a bunch of assets to go get the guy, got injured, paid him, and then ended up trading him and took the biggest cap hit in NFL history. This is a guy who wins headlines. He has to win trades because guess what? If they don't make moves in the trade market and in free agency, they're not going to be a good football team because they do not draft well. They have some hits over the past few years, no doubt about it. I'm sorry. You don't get a ton of credit from me for drafting Jalen Carter. Okay, you took a risk on the guy because he had character issues. It was never anything to do with his talent because, look, there was a reason why he was the number 1 player on my big board in last year's draft. I guess I'll give you Devontae Smith, but again, that's not a hard scout. Like, he was one of the best players in the country that year. And have they hit on a few guys in the later rounds? A few. Every team does that, though. Okay, so a lot of people say a lot of good things about Howie Roseman, and they never, for some reason, acknowledge this guy's flaws, and they're so evident. And whenever you talk to an Eagles fan about this, it's Howie vision, ski mask Howie. Well, can we go over some of the trades that this guy had? That Kevin Byard trade was terrible. The Robert Quinn trade that he had last season, didn't give him any type of production and traded a 4th-round pick for the guy. That was a terrible trade. And people don't bring that up. They don't bring that up because every here and there, they'll have really high highs. Oh, yeah, by the way, that Super Bowl that they won, a majority of those guys that were on that team when they won it weren't drafted by Howie Roseman. They weren't. Okay. So to me, he is the most overrated general manager in football. And we talk about this, you and I, we talked about this earlier. The most effective way to build a football team is to build through the draft. And when you have a general manager who his weakness is the draft, how can you be a great general manager?
Slow clap. Slow clap for you. I don't hate Howie Roseman. I think
no, I don't either.
I do think he's a little overrated. You know, I had that thought today. You absolutely said it before me, so this is your thought, not mine. But I was kind of looking back on it, and I got to get running in here in just a second. But the biggest thing with Howie is I said this. I was like, Philadelphia, I work in the media business. I know how it's like. Phoenix is not a big market. You're not going to ruffle a lot of feathers. In Philadelphia, oh, you're in Pennsylvania. The sports talk media is way harder in Pennsylvania. In Boston, it is way harder. And I didn't listen to Philadelphia sports talk radio this week. I bet you they're gushing over Saquon Barkley because that's what you have to do. You got to win the media over there. And not in Phoenix, not in Nevada, not in Colorado. You don't got to win the media over there. In LA, in Pennsylvania, in New York, in Boston, that's a real thing. You can't piss off the media. You can't do it. You have to actually work with them unless you're Bill Belichick and you have 6 Super Bowls. This was a win the day. We won the headline, and they're going to talk about it for a week. But in the middle of December, when they're scoring 30 points and still losing because James Bradbury's tripping over his feet, Darius Slay might have gotten old, and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's flexing on someone for catching a tipped interception, but then letting a ball go over his head, that's going to be the problem. Their linebackers, still really bad. You know, people point to Nakobe Dean. I'm like, okay, what is Nakobe Dean done? It's just a name right now. Keely Ringo is just a name right now until it proves that they can actually do something. But I agree with you. You don't get credit for drafting Jalen Carter, who I wanted the Cardinals to draft at number 3, and I don't hate the Eagles. I mess with this guy all the time I said it was my team just to mess with you halfway through the season. You don't get credit for drafting Jalen Carter. You had a bunch of Georgia players. Your culture is pretty good in Philadelphia. Still crying on the sidelines, which is weird in any aspect in the pros. But you don't get credit for that. You don't get credit for hitting on first-round picks. You have to hit those. Otherwise, you end up like a stupid GM, like Steve Keim, like the Cardinals.
And he doesn't even hit on. He doesn't hit on a lot of these picks. Like he really doesn't.
Stop it. Carson Wentz was really good. He's misunderstood.
Well, no, but I'm just saying, like, even after that, right? Like, I get it. Somebody's going to write in the comments, oh, well, they got a first-round pick for Sam Bradford, and then they drafted Derek Barnett. And then they drafted Andre Dillard the following year. And then they drafted
get Derek Barnett.
And in 2019, I can't even remember who they drafted. It probably wasn't anybody good. Okay, so and when it comes to the Eagles, I don't believe that they're much better than they were last year. Okay, because I want to bring up these 2 questions, and nobody can answer these questions for me until I see it on the field. When it comes to Jalen Hurts, 1, okay, you had Shane Steichen as your coordinator. When he was your coordinator, you played really damn good football. And that's not a knock to say that like Jalen Hurts isn't a really good player. Like he is, but he's not elite because like when I look at elite guys, I look at guys like Herbert and Lamar Jackson that they might not have had the great play callers, but they figure it out and they're still productive players. Jalen Hurts, I get it. He didn't have a great play caller this year. I've seen other really damn good quarterbacks without high-level play callers, even to say bad play callers, be productive in their offenses. So is it, because to me, when I look at the data, he was at his best when Shane Steichen was there. And when he wasn't playing great football. And another point I want to say is this. They have Kellen Moore on their coaching staff now. Why is it that Dallas was the number 1 offense back in 2021? He leaves and they're still the number 1 offense in football. So was it Kellen Moore or was it the players that he had on his team? And those are questions that are going to need to be asked by the Eagles and or answered by the Eagles. And one last thing, because I know you got to go here. Why is it important that you can run the football if your team's going to let up 35 points a game? Because guess what? When teams are putting up crazy points on you, it doesn't matter if you can run the football, because it at that point you got to throw the football to get back in the game. So I don't think that they're a better team with this. Not at all.
No, I don't think so either. I think they're exactly where they were at last year. I mean, I know Saquon Barkley is better than DeAndre Swift, and I'm very critical of DeAndre Swift, especially his vision. It's just bad at times.
Hey, don't talk about my St. Joe's prep guy like that, man.
Yeah, but it's just, how much better is he than DeAndre Swift? I mean, he's better. He's better, and he's probably considerably better. But
agreed. 100% agree.
Is that gonna? You made a good point. I didn't even think about that. When they're scoring 1 billion points, guess what you can't do? Chew the clock. And he's a good pass catcher. He's a good pass catcher. He's a top 5 pass catcher in the NFL. I'm escaping guys. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey's one, and then there's a bunch of other guys. But we'll see. I think they're gonna regret that contract. I know I sound like a hater, and Cowboy fans will tell me that later on when I'm making fun of their team, but it's just, I don't get it. It doesn't make fiscal sense, and it's winning headlines. And if that's what, whatever WPI, the fan radio, wants to hear, then let them hear that. But later in the season, when anyone is gashing up your linebackers in your secondary, which is still bad, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's not fixing all that, but whatever. I rest my case.
And he's injury prone too. That's an injury prone player that they have on that team. So if Chauncey
Small
Gardner
safety
goes out,
safety.
yeah, it's back to step one for them. But